talk about the big news that just happened about an hour and a half ago, which is that Paramount, owned by the Ellisons, is set to take control of Warner Brothers Discovery. So, this is bad. I am aware of how much bad news there is. And so many times I'm like, you know what would be really fun if we had some great news for once? Wouldn't that be really fun? Wouldn't that be a nice change? But I can't not talk about this as bad as it is because of what this means. And, you know, we've talked about this in the ongoing, with the ongoing negotiations between Netflix and Warner Brothers Discovery, and then Paramount and Warner Brothers Discovery. And neither of those options were good, but the Ellisons being in control of even more media, even more traditional media and entertainment business is really, really, really bad. The people yearn for state-controlled media. Yeah, I just stress that everybody, no matter where you fall on the political spectrum, should understand that this kind of consolidation of power in the hands of one family is horrible. This is antithetical to democracy, to our freedoms. This is bad for business, for customers. This reduces your choice. This, makes you spend more money for a worse product. It is bad for all of us, except for these billionaires like the Ellisons, and for people like Donald Trump. All of this is bad. It's really, it's as they say, fucked.
Following the Warner Brothers Discovery Board's determination that Paramount, which is not just going for Warner Brothers Studios and HBO, but also the whole enchilada, including us here at CNN, Paramount has submitted a superior.
And you know how we knew this was going to happen? I mean, a lot of reasons. But last week, when CBS blocked Stephen Colbert from airing the interview with James Tallarico on his show. And just to kind of summarize this whole merger bullshit, Paramount and Netflix both submitted bids. It was looking like Paramount's was not going to surpass Netflix's. So without it being a done deal, Netflix seemed to be the company that was going to win out the bid. And then when this shit happened last week with James Tallarico and Stephen Colbert and CBS and Brendan Carr, and it was clearly another blatant censorship move to please Donald Trump on the by the request of the Ellisons. Then we got the news that there's going to actually be a good faith pause here in the Netflix and WBD negotiations, and Paramount is going to be allowed to resubmit a bid. So this was after they had already attempted a hostile takeover, and then Jared Kushner and his Saudi money pulled out. And then it looked like Paramount just didn't have the offer, so it was going to go to Netflix. But then Paramount, it was reported this past week, was coming in with a new bid. And obviously, now we are at this point that Netflix has backed out. They're like, nope, we cannot offer a bid that is higher than this one. And so the proof is all in the pudding here. Ted Sarandis had just gone to the White House this morning. He met with Donald Trump. I'm sure Trump told him, like, Teddy boy, don't worry, I'll help you out with whatever other deals you have. But it was clear that no, the decision was going to be that the Ellisons are going to get this one.
Offer, according to Warner Brothers Discovery's board. As I've noted, Warner Brothers Discovery is the parent company of CNN. So let's get right to CNN chief media analyst Brian Stelter. So let's start with the question, why did Netflix walk away? Ted Sarandos and others at Netflix made it.
There's a chance state AGs could sue. No, state AGs need to sue. What needs to happen here is, one, Congress, which does not have the power to block the deal, but they do have power of oversight. So they will have hearings. I'm sure Cory Booker will write another book about his testifying, the strongly written letters and speeches that he gives on the House floor or on the congressional floor. The state AGs need to sue. Unions like WGA have already said that they will do whatever they can to block this deal. But the issue is that it's the DOJ and the FTC, and both of them are obviously in the hands of Donald Trump. It is Donald Trump's DOJ, Donald Trump's FTC. So it's not a guarantee that even if all of these other forces act to stop this deal, that it's going to stop the deal. But it still needs to happen, obviously. So I just got a statement from California AG Bonta's office. Paramount Warner Brothers is not a done deal. These two Hollywood titans have not cleared regulatory scrutiny. The California Department of Justice has an open investigation. We intend to be vigorous in our review. Yeah.
Very clear. They really wanted Warner Brothers Studios, and they really wanted HBO.
Right, and this corporate tug of
thank you
war,
for the 2 months. Maddie, thank you for the 35. Deanie, thank you for the bits.
There's a lot, of course, that could still happen here, but the big news this afternoon is that Paramount suddenly is in a much stronger position to take over CNN and the rest of the Warner Bros. Discovery company, which includes HBO and the Warner Bros. Movie Studio and all those other assets. Paramount is the company that essentially put this into play last summer. New CEO David Ellison, shortly after taking over Paramount, CBS, that part of the media world, then set his sights on WBD. And WBD CEO David Zaslav started a bidding war as a result. He sided with Netflix, the WBD board sided with Netflix for a deal that had been struck back in December, but Paramount had then launched a hostile takeover bid. And in recent days, Paramount had negotiations with WBD and raised the offer to $31 per share with a bunch of sweeteners that made the deal more appealing, more palatable to WBD. So in the last few hours, we've heard from WBD that it is siding with Paramount, and now Netflix is walking away from the table. There's two elements about this, Jake. Number one, Netflix says, quote, the deal is no longer financially attractive, so we are declining to match the Paramount bid. But number two, Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, was at the White House for meetings today, and I'm told by a source he left the White House in a not very happy mood. There's a lot more reporting to do about that aspect of the story. We don't know anything from the Netflix side about the White House meetings, but it is clear that M&A runs through the Oval Office right now, and it is possible that Netflix has been given signals from the White House that the regulatory roadblocks were going to be too severe for the Netflix deal to get through. Bottom line, Paramount now takes the...
Also, Paramount just this week reported a $339 million operating loss in last year's fourth quarter. That includes $500 million in restructuring costs, because remember, Paramount was just merged with Skydance. So the Ellisons own Skydance. They just acquired Paramount. Like these mergers, these M&As are happening so fast. They're like one after the other. We also just had the disastrous both the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, the AT&T and Warner Media merger. I mean, this has just been massive mergers stacked on top of one another and have been really bad.
Lead in this ongoing race to take over Warner Brothers. There are still other regulatory hurdles for Paramount, but it's a big change now and a big success for Paramount to have Netflix say it's walking away. And there's lots of caveats, Jake. You know, Netflix says it's walking away. There's been new developments every few hours in this story, so we'll see what happens next. But at least for now, Paramount with the clear lead right now to take over CNN.
Explain what you mean. You said M&A walks through M&A moves through the White House. That's mergers and acquisitions. Explain exactly what you mean by that. You're saying that President Trump has to sign off on any one of these.
This is not sustainable. It's not sustainable. No. The Ellisons think they can buy all of legacy media and TikTok. No, these mergers have already proven to be terrible business decisions, like not just bad for consumers and people who work at these companies, where, of course, when a big merger happens, it results in layoffs because of the massive amount of debt that then is acquired.
Deals now, if they're big enough.
His government does, right? His administration, historically at FCC, in this case it's the DOJ, the Justice Department, that would sign off. And the DOJ is currently reviewing the Netflix deal that apparently fell apart in the last few minutes. We know that President Trump's taken a very personal interest in this particular deal, however. He has said that it's, quote, imperative that CNN be sold, given that he doesn't like the current owners of CNN. And he has met with the CEOs involved repeatedly. It's a big change.
Look, you guys, I know CNN generally sucks. Like, they're already, of course, like mainstream, the rest of mainstream media, pro-Israel, pro-establishment, pro-corporate interests. But yeah, like this is going to make it so much worse. It can always get worse. And I know for a lot of you in here, especially if you're Gen Z, you might think CNN is a, failing media company that only only older people listen to. You should know still, though, that CNN is like the biggest global news infrastructure all around the world. CNN airs in restaurants, in airports. Like, it still has a ton of global power. And so that is a big reason why the Ellisons have been pushing to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. They don't really give a shit about all the other, all the IP and the studio and kind of entertainment side that they will be now owning. Like they do. They obviously want they're looking to extend their power across media, digital platforms, the entertainment industry. But CNN is a big piece here. And Donald Trump has been at war. He has, had CNN in his crosshairs since he first became president. CNN is where a lot of his, fake news and all that has been directed at. He hates CNN. I wonder what will happen to John Oliver. To be determined.
Past presidents who have left the DOJ alone to this.
Yeah, the next Superman is going to say that the next Superman movie, it's Baravia has the right to defend itself.
Let antitrust experts take the lead. Trump has been very involved. And so there's a lot more reporting to be done about what he has been doing in recent weeks when it comes to this deal. And I know people will have understandable concerns about what an ownership change might mean for CNN. Paramount's a complicated place right now. It's a company where Stephen Colbert is being pushed out at CBS, but also where South Park skewers President Trump and where Jon Stewart still speaks truth to power, John Oliver as well. It's led by a CEO, David Ellison, who's worked hard to forge a relationship with Trump, but who also donated $1 million to Joe Biden's re-election campaign. So a lot more to come on the Paramount front.
There are four main concessions that Paramount made in order to get the Warner Brothers Discovery board to really favor its bid. The first one was...
You know what, guys? We have nothing to fear at the Ellisons because Larry Ellison donated $1 million to Joe Biden's campaign. So don't worry. None of this is that deep.
Paramount,
okay?
About 60% of the debt that it's raising is coming from foreign companies or foreign funds. You got the Saudi fund, the Qataris, and you have the folks at the UAE. they wanted assurances that those people weren't going to get voting rights. So that was number one.
Larry Ellison, who's the biggest private donor to Friends of the IDF. That guy.
Number two, Paramount basically promised
it's almost like
that
billionaires
it would
donate millions to politicians on both sides
equity
for
financing
favor.
with Larry Ellison's money. The Warner Brothers Discovery Board wanted to make sure this deal was going to close. Number three, Paramount made a lot of little concessions, like they would cover the breakup fee that Warner Brothers Discovery would have to pay Netflix. And then last but not least, I mean, they got that share price offer up so high, Jim. When Paramount first bid for Warner Brothers Discovery in September, they were offering $19 per share. David Zaslav looks like a genius here because he was able to get Paramount from $19 to $31 a share.
They do
and Netflix
not have
pretty
that.
smart too. They walk away, but now one of their biggest competitors is left holding a ton of debt.
Was there another factor, Sarah, here, an administration that sent signals, it seems, about which of the bidders it favored from a regulatory perspective? And as you know, the Netflix CEO went to the White House for a visit. I mean, the reporting had been that perhaps he was scoping out the chances of Netflix surviving regulatory approval. Was that a factor in this?
Maybe, but I don't personally think so, because I think both of these deals, Jim, would have faced similar regulatory scrutiny and investigations. There's such massive consolidation that the DOJ would have investigated both. Whether or not the DOJ would have sued to block one over another is a different question. Now, you could say that the president might have put his finger on the scale and asked his DOJ to sue to block one over another. But ultimately, even if he did that, they would have to go to an independent judge in court. And we've seen in the past with the AT&T attempt to or merger with Time Warner, now Warner Media, now Warner Brothers Discovery, that they blocked
now
that.
Paramount,
so
Warner Brothers
the bigger
Discovery.
question is, would international regulators have blocked this? Maybe, but I don't think it's a regulatory
Liar? Who, me? You're calling me a liar?
issue. I honestly think that David Zaslav is a smart maneuverer and got one of his biggest competitors to put up an enormous sum for this asset. Warner Brothers Discovery's stock, Jim, is up like well over 60%.
You're calling me or Donald Trump?
Since this whole situation started. Meanwhile, Paramount and Netflix were both down.
There is
No.
journalistic aspect to this.
I really wanted to do a dramatic gasp.
Right, because CNN is one of a small piece, but it's still a sizable piece of this deal. When Paramount bought another major media corporation, as you know,
Caroline
there was
Kwan.
immediate editorial change
Baseline
at
Drive,
CBS
thank you for the
News,
4
which
months.
falls inside that company.
Sophie, thank you for the 13 months.
Is that something that might be an intention of the Paramount leadership?
It wouldn't surprise me, just because they want to get...
Yeah, also, y'all, you know, we've been talking about woke too. Woke being so back, baby. Good luck. Good luck to woke too when we have the Ellisons, who have already, aside from just them being, you know, MAGA billionaires, have already stated publicly that they want to. David Ellison has said that he wants Hollywood to be like an old boys club again. So how it's been for most of history, that they want to ensure that people like Brett Ratner, who had to flee to Tel Aviv because, gosh darn it, he was accused of sexual abuse by multiple actresses, has a place again in Hollywood. Okay, Brett Ratner, who made his great return with the Melania documentary. Yeah. But with the Ellisons in more and more control of Hollywood, guys like Brett Ratner, they shouldn't have to worry. They shouldn't have to just flee to Tel Aviv because they've been accused by multiple women of sexual assault.
Regulatory approval, and clearly
he also said he wants to blackball pro-Palestine actors. Yes, so we talked about the blacklist that Paramount already has in effect, and that blacklist is only going to grow and grow and grow. It is not just going to be people who are anti-Israel and pro-Palestine.
that they need to be making these types of concessions in order to get it. I mean, with the situation with Paramount and Skydance, that was
Hacks
a little
is going to be
bit
canceled.
different
Well,
because
Hacks
they
is ending
needed
with season
approval
5 anyway.
from the FCC. I mean, they wanted to make sure that those broadcast licenses were transferred over. They're now acquiring a cable company and streaming assets, so the FCC won't be involved. It might be a little bit different, but that wouldn't shock me. The one thing I do want to note here, though, Jim, is that they need regulatory approval, Paramount, Skydance, from dozens of countries around the world. It's not just the US. And when it comes to who's probing this, ultimately, yes, it will come down to an independent judge in court if the DOJ sues to block this. But state attorneys generals may also look into starting an investigation here. And Democratic state attorneys generals have been very vocal about the concerns of Paramount meddling with CNN. So this whole process is not quite over quite yet. You're looking at 12 to 18 months at least.
Trump has told motherfucker. Trump has, I mean, this is obviously. Trump has told people that Larry Ellison assured him that he would make the media more conservative if he's able to buy media companies. I think I already went over this piece when it came out a month ago, but yeah, this is exactly what we think it is. So you're telling me it's exactly what we've been saying the whole time that it is? Larry Ellison, who is helping his Nepo baby build out a media empire, a dynasty, so that they will rule the world. They discuss how to navigate President Trump, whose administration must approve any major acquisition. Larry Ellison has taken the lead in making the case to the president for why Paramount and not Netflix, its rival bidder, should win control of Warner Brothers. Trump has pledged to be involved in any decision about whether to approve a deal. When talking about the hostile bid for Warner Brothers, Ellison is often referred to his history of hostile acquisitions during the 90s and 2000s. Two people with knowledge of the discussion said. His son, who interned at Oracle for 2 summers during that time, watched him work through some deals. If the Ellisons prevail, their business empire could range from CNN to Warner Brothers to TikTok. That could have enormous consequences for the news and entertainment industries, perhaps making the Ellisons as influential as the Murdochs, whose media dynasty operates Fox News, The Wall Street Journal, and other major outlets. Trump has privately said that Larry Ellison assured him that he would turn CBS News, which the Ellisons took over when they bought Paramount, into a more conservative outlet. And that they have. And it's been a very quick turnaround, and it's if I'm in charge of turning an outlet like CBS more to the right, I'd probably do it over a longer span. But no, they just out the gate went, we don't care if this is, we don't care if the critics and the public are talking about how shitty CBS News, how much shittier it's gotten under Barry Weiss. They don't care. Yeah, the Erica Kirk town hall, which was a disaster, because that's not the point. David Zaslav says the new Warner Brothers Paramount acquisition will create tremendous value for shareholders. I hate this fucking guy. David Zaslav. Entertainment industry, public enemy number one. Me and all my homies hate Zaslav. We are excited about the potential of a combined Paramount Skydance and Warner Brothers Discovery and can't wait to get started working together, telling the stories that move the world. Yeah, so this guy is set to become a billionaire, and he will be one of the few CEOs who becomes a billionaire, not for his own company that he started, but because he does this kind of shit. Because he oversaw the Warner Brothers Discovery merger and now the Warner Brothers Discovery Paramount merger, and that has made him so much money. That's who he is. This man doesn't give two flying fucks about storytelling, about art, especially like this. I mean, right here, he says this will create tremendous value for shareholders. That's his bottom line. He doesn't care about any of the artistic, creative process. This guy will shelve a fully finished film to get a tax break because his company is so deeply in debt due to these massive mergers. The Ellison family, led by history's single largest donor to the Friends of the IDF, Larry Ellison, has responded to the collapse of support for Israel by gobbling up and controlling key media, CBS, Paramount, TikTok. Now they beat Netflix to buy Warner Brothers, CNN, etc. Yeah, that's a big part of it here, and we've talked about this, but what has happened with Israel's reputation, particularly with younger people in the West, because they have not been susceptible to pro-Israel propaganda like older generations have been, and because Israel has been carrying out a genocide that has been live streamed, that has been all over our algorithms, our social media platforms. It has influenced greatly how people in the country that calls itself Israel's greatest ally feel towards Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu, Larry Ellison, other powerful Israel supporters have publicly talked about the need to get the public back on Team Israel. And one way that they have approached that is through controlling information. That is why the purchase of TikTok happened, why Larry Ellison seeks to control the social media platform that so many young people are on, that as, in comparison to, say, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, had a lot more pro-Palestine content. And that is bad for Israel's, that's bad for Israel's reputation, because here's the thing: you cannot commit a genocide that is being, that is being documented by the very people who are experiencing it and shared with the rest of the world, and then expect that people aren't going to go, hey, you know what? Fuck these guys. Oh, wait, Israel, kind of evil. And so this is all about controlling the narrative. It's all about ensuring that Israel can get back what it lost. They have obviously seen the global protests. They have obviously seen all of the polls, the shifts in the public in their feelings towards Israel and Palestine. They have seen way too much empathy for the Palestinian cause. And that is why they want to want to ensure this total media takeover. How is David Ellison's father a billionaire, but he still can't afford a couple eyebrows? David Ellison, I have always told people, like, please never forget that it is Larry Ellison. Larry Ellison is the Ellison family. David is his Nepo baby fail son. He's like a little more competent than, say, a Donald Trump Jr. or an Eric Trump. But David is just doing what his father's plan has always been. And he fucking sucks, too. Don't get me wrong. David Ellison sucks, but it is like this entire empire is the creation, the success of Larry Ellison. How do you fail at being a Nepo baby? Many such cases. Jonah Platt, the significantly less successful son of Mark Platt, brother of Ben Platt. Yeah. Talk about a Nepo baby fail, son. Hopium, California. Well, I mean, we talked about this. I mean, sure. Like, yeah, the AGs have the ability to sue and try and stop the deal from going through per an antitrust suit. But you know what? Yeah, hopium. Yep. Yes.
Oh, because they did the acquisition. So it's like Warner Brothers and Netflix. I guess Paramount too. And HBO. Huh. Oh. Also Pixar.
Jared Kushner helped out with this one too.
You know, this might not be the best. Yeah, let's turn this off.
It's all coming true.
למתי הזמנת את הבייביסיטר? אנחנו מאחרים. ממי, למתי הזמנת את הבייביסיטר?
Oh my God, what is this clip from? Meet the Babysitter? Ew. Ew. That is a horror movie. This 12-second clip. Check my last. No. It was this one. Movie intros in 2026. This is what I was looking for. Where just every company is every company. Yeah, you know how every company is just literally every company?
Paramount has...
Okay, this is from like a month or so ago, but obviously still relevant because it's happening right now.
Paramount has launched a hostile bid to take over Warner Brothers Discovery. Just days after Netflix announced an $83 billion deal to acquire Warner Studio and streaming assets, including HBO Max. Paramount's largest shareholder is Larry Ellison, one of the world's richest men and a close ally of President Trump. Paramount is attempting to fund the takeover of the Warner Brothers Discovery Company with funding from sovereign wealth funds from Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, and Qatar, as well as affinity partners, the private equity fund led by Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law. Critics of media consolidation have warned against both Netflix's offer and Paramount's hostile bid. Actor and activist Jane Fonda, who recently relaunched her father's free speech organization from the 1940s, called the Committee for the First Amendment, published an op-ed in The Ankler last week, headlined, "The WBD deal puts Hollywood and democracy at risk." She writes further consolidation will mean, quote, fewer jobs, fewer opportunities to sell work, fewer creative risks, fewer news sources, and far less diversity in the stories Americans get to hear. And when only a handful of mega companies control the entire pipeline, they gain the power to steamroll every guild, SAG-AFTRA, the WGA, the PGA, the DGA, IATSE, everyone, making it harder for workers to bargain, harder to stand up for themselves, and harder to make a living at all. The words of Jane Fonda. The future of Warner Brothers may rest in part in the hands of federal regulators who must approve any merger. On Sunday night, prior to Paramount's hostile bid, President Trump said Netflix-Warner merger, quote, could be a problem.
They have a very big market share. And when they have Warner Brothers, you know, that share goes up a lot. So I don't know. That's going to be for some economists to tell. And also, and I'll be involved in that decision, too. But it is a big market share. There's no question about that. It could be a problem.
Mr. President.
On Monday, after Paramount announced its hostile bid, President Trump was asked about the competing bids for Warner Brothers, including the involvement of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
I know the companies very well. I know what they're doing, but I have to see what percentage of market they have. We have to see the Netflix percentage of market, Paramount, the percentage of market. I mean, none of them are particularly great friends of mine. You know, I want to do what's right. It's so very important to do what's right.
Paramount deal is supported by Jared Kushner, Mr. President. Would that impact your decision?
If Paramount is, I don't know. I've never spoken to them about it.
We're joined now by Craig Aaron, the co-CEO of Free Press and Free Press Action, two media reform organizations not to be confused with Barry Weiss's The Free Press, which is now owned by Paramount. Craig's most recent article is headlined, "Stop the Merger Madness." Free Press has also just published a new report headlined, "Chokehold."
Yeah, also, we'll talk about this afterwards. We'll talk about the Scream 7 boycott and everything happening around Scream. But just remember that one of the reasons Melissa Barrera was fired from Scream, because she was not just advocating for Palestine and calling out the genocide, but what she was talking about was that it's clearly in the media one-sided, where one perspective, one narrative gets to, gets to have the spotlight on it, and that is Israel's, as it's always been. And she was falsely accused of being anti-Semitic, of course, par for the course of calling all criticism of Israel and support for Palestinian liberation, calling it anti-Semitic. But what she was talking about, what a lot of people have been talking about, is exactly what continues to happen. This greater push to ensure that fascism, which includes support for Zionism and Israel's war crimes, like we're not just talking about the Donald Trump brand of fascism, we're talking about all fascism, gets elevated, is like what is propagated through the media. This is how the media is used as a tool for fascism. And Melissa Barrera was fired for pointing that out.
Donald Trump's war on free speech and the need for systemic resistance. Craig Aaron, welcome back to Democracy Now!
Was there drama with Jasmine Savoy Brown? I can't stand her. She is, every time I see a clip where she is asked, say, "Hey girl, what's up with you? What's up with you not actually ever standing on business?" And then she'll always turn around and go, Scream 7 is incredible because visibility is so important. And me getting to play an openly queer character, I mean, that's what it's all about, you know, that visibility. Or like, didn't she also post something on Instagram recently too, where she said that she hasn't posted about Palestine in a while because she's been on Lexapro? Like, she's always got some way to turn the conversation around to be about her. And it's really annoying. She's been weird. She has been weird. It's very annoying.
If you can respond to all that has happened in just a matter of days, there was enormous criticism of Netflix bid. And now, of course, you have this hostile bid by none other than President Trump's son-in-law. Can you talk about all of this?
Absolutely. Good to be with you, Amy and Juan. This is really a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation where we have these giant companies trying to take control of even more of what we watch, see, hear, and read every day. So Netflix, of course, if they could get this deal done, would dominate online streaming. Paramount itself has...
I'm on Lexapro and I'm posting about Palestine every single day.
A huge streaming business and, of course, is a major movie studio. So this is another situation where we're talking about giant companies merging, spending billions and billions of dollars, all the lawyers and bankers getting rich. But you don't have to look very far in the past to understand that media consolidation after media consolidation deal are disastrous for the workers in these industries. They're disastrous for the audience who see prices go up and choices go down.
Sorry. I know none of this is funny, but bro, I'm watching this Paramount I'm watching the Paramount cut of Superman. What the fuck is this? 3 weeks ago, Charlie Kirk was shot by Antifa terrorists, sparking outrage around the world. Wow, tell me more. Oh my God. If Superman comes in, just first thing he says, "Am Israel high?" Like, Jesus, man. Is that real? No, but it could be. It's the scary thing is it's a joke for now.
And pretty much every time they're disastrous for the businesses as well. This is the third giant merger in recent time just to involve Warner Brothers. We go back to AOL Time Warner. We've had AT&T and Time Warner. All of these deals collapsing, falling apart, costing thousands and thousands of jobs. Warner Brothers Discovery itself the product of failed mergers. And now we're being told we need more concentration, more consolidation, and we have to be asking ourselves, who does this serve? It seems to serve these executives. Maybe it serves Donald Trump. He seems very interested in competition for his favor, not very interested in actual competition when it comes to media, when it comes to entertainment.
And Craig, you mentioned Trump.
I laugh. I laugh at anyone out there who still believes as if there is any equality of power here between Israel and Palestine, as if there's ever been. When look at the result of when people, or like ordinary everyday people, find out what's been happening in Palestine for decades. Not just the current genocide, but prior to October 7th, and they express their dissent. They are critical of Israel in ways that we have not seen in the United States of America. And look at the response from billionaires like the Ellisons, from, so much power and wealth in this world, from these institutions that are seeking to get a handle on the public's dissent. I mean, how do you at all, how can you look at that? And how to, I just think about Trump supporters who still bitch and moan about how unfair everything is and that they're the victims. And I go, in what fucking world are you living in? Truly. In what world are you living in? Because I'm living in the world where all I see is fascist billionaires continue to take over every platform, every space where people consume information and communicate. So how are you still crying? How do you still believe that you are a victim here, that it's unfair, that you're just the little guy? I'm trying to pay attention to what you're saying, but I'm late. So as I'm reading your stream title, the story headlines just get progressively worse. Oh yeah, don't forget about Jonathan Majors in the Daily Wire. The worst of all. Rays of Sunlight, thank you for the prime.
Spectacle of the president saying he will be involved in the decision on this merger one way or the other. Forget about the fact that his son-in-law is a
it's like,
participant.
Oh yeah, but the pesky online Antifa radical left that is the cause of all the violence in the world. You know, that goddamn You know, that goddamn online left and all the power that we have.
Obviously, in one of the bids, how frequently have presidents in the past directly involved themselves in these kinds of merger decisions where the FCC is involved?
Those radical lefties and their Twitter
some of these
clout.
are political fights, and so the White House might have a stake, they might have an interest in the outcome, but the idea that the president would be announcing that he's personally going to be involved, the idea that someone as close to the president as a member of his own family could be poised to benefit from a decision of the administration, this would be completely unthinkable. And even the way this whole decision is being made really does look like, you know, a mafia type situation, not anything that is recognizable in terms of policy making. Paramount and the Ellisons' entire argument for why they should be the company that wins this bidding war essentially boils down to Donald Trump likes us better. And they've been very clear in trying to win over Trump. That's why Jared Kushner's involved. They're trying to win over Trump. They're saying, we want to control CNN. We're going to make CNN better for you. Look what we've done at CBS, where we've muted 60 Minutes, where we've put Barry Weiss in charge of the news operation. This is their entire package and selling point to the administration, is that if they go with Paramount Skydance, then that's going to be good for Trump, because these media executives understand, unfortunately, that's how you get things done in the Trump era, is you appeal to the ego of Trump, you flatter Trump, and you try to line Trump's pockets or the pockets of those closest to him. That's how business gets done in the Trump era.
Another meme, if you watch the new Game of Thrones show. HBO after the MAGA acquisition. Continue raping, sir. Oh my God.
And what are the next steps here? What agencies do have to have oversight? And you mentioned Paramount, but isn't the head, the chief legal officer of Paramount, wasn't he the head of antitrust division of the Justice Department during Trump's first term?
That's right, Juan. The revolving door is spinning. So Makandel Rahim, who was the top antitrust enforcer under the first Trump administration. Now, of course, he's Paramount's top lawyer, trying to work the system to get approval for their hostile takeover if it's announced. So there are a lot of things that are going to happen in the weeks ahead. I would remind folks that every time a merger is announced, all the companies involved want to treat it like it's a done deal, like it's about to be finished. That is not the case.
Yeah, they try to rush it
That's just PR
through.
and spin. We're looking at least a year of evaluating this deal, and that's not even including the fact that there are multiple suitors here trying to appeal to the Warner Brothers board and now directly to their shareholders in a hostile takeover. But
what people need, this is one of those where, on the one hand, no, we don't want to treat everything as if there's, oh, it's over, it's done, we're so fucked, there's nothing we can do, because then it's just giving up, right? But we do need to emphasize how fucking bad this is, so that the public, so that the people who live in the U.S. who can have the opportunity to take action here will do so. Like it's not, yeah, it's fucked. Like, it's bad, but people need to be aware of that so that they are outraged and go, we cannot have this happen, so that pressure is applied every way possible in order to block this deal, and pointing to past mergers that have been stopped, that, you know, monopolies that have been broken up. So I just want to clarify that I don't want to just ever leave it at, oh my God, we're so fucked. But it is important to emphasize how bad the nature of a deal like this is, so that people don't just sit there unaware and do nothing about it.
Whatever deal Warner Brothers pursues, probably by the end of this month, by December 22nd, that would have to go before the Justice Department. That is going to be, I believe, who will review this deal at the federal level. Of course, the Justice Department is also not what it used to be even when Del Rahim was there. You know, it has become a direct arm of the Trump administration pursuing the Trump administration's political goals.
Yeah. Also, another thing you can be doing right now, and because somebody asked me, they're like, I have no hope. What do I do? One important thing to put energy into right now is the current push against censorship bills in order to protect our digital liberties. So this is something that I was talking about the other day with Taylor Lorenz. She is all over this stuff, has been all over this stuff for a long time. So this is action that we can take right now. Go to bad internet bills. This will give you the info. You can fill out this form. Like, this stuff is happening right now. And simultaneously, there's a push to stop the repeal of Section 230, to stop these child safety bills from going through, because in reality, they are deeply damaging censorship bills. So just remember that there is always something that we can put our energy into other than just, holy shit, everything's on fire. Hassan's Wingman, thank you so much for the bits.
But if they actually follow the law, of course, they would have to scrutinize this deal and really looking at the basics there. There's no way a deal like this should even be considered. Now, it's not just the Justice Department that will look here. State attorneys general could have a role. That's very important. If you're the Attorney General of California or New York, you should have a lot of interest in what is going to happen to this huge industry that is such a big part of your state.
His statement
and this is a big
us.
enough deal that European regulators and others around the world are also going to be scrutinizing it, because it is such a ginormous multi-billion-dollar deal between these huge companies that really will reshape the entertainment industry as we know it.
And I wanted to ask you about another merger under consideration, this one by the FCC. That's of Nexstar, the country's largest owner of TV stations, with a competitor, Tegna. Tell us, Nexstar is pretty well known as a very conservative company, isn't it?
That's right, and especially during the Trump administration. Nexstar has been collecting hundreds of television stations across the country in this way.
Remember, this is when Jimmy Kimmel was the whole Jimmy Kimmel fiasco, the We Are Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, that is the Nexstar Tegna deal that they are working on right now to get finished by the end of the year. Je suis Jimmy.
Media consolidation. They are now going to the Federal Communications Commission and asking them to waive laws to actually overturn explicit instructions from Congress that limit the amount of television stations.
Nexstar CEO, this is from today. Nexstar CEO salutes Donald Trump for backing Tegna merger, says mega deal is on track to close by June. Nexstar CEO Perry Sook told Wall Street analysts that the company's executives appreciate the support of President Trump of the pending $6.2 billion merger with Tegna. The mega deal would create by far the largest owner of local TV stations with reach to 80% of U.S. households. Earlier this month, Trump backed the transaction in a post on Truth Social, arguing that the deal would create more competition against the enemy, the fake news national TV networks. In order to close, Nexstar will need a waiver of the federal ownership cap, which dates to the 1990s and limits ownership to stations reaching 39% of the USA number of local TV executives led by Sook. A number of local TV executives led by Sook have criticized the cap for years, insisting it's an outdated way of gauging media consumption given the explosive growth of streaming and digital video. No, he's not even hiding it. No, he never has. The combined company would have 265 stations in 44 states in the District of Columbia, representing 80% of U.S. TV households, dwarfing the size of other station groups. yeah, so don't forget about this deal. And this is a major media merger that I think people kind of forgot about after the whole Jimmy Kimmel situation. But it's, I'm sorry to be a broken record, but it's really bad. It's really bad. Essentially, local news will be in total control of conservative hands.
The size of the audience one television chain can reach. They're trying to get that thrown out so they can take over Tegna. And they've done that again by appealing to the Trump administration, by promising to crack down on critical journalism, and by doing things like taking Jimmy Kimmel off the air. This was one of the companies, along with Sinclair Broadcasting, another very partisan broadcaster, that when the FCC chairman went on a podcast and started complaining about jokes Jimmy Kimmel was making about Charlie Kirk, it was Nexstar rushing to immediately yank him, pull him off the air while having this multi-billion.
Yeah, remember that mass psychosis that we were all subjected to? When suddenly it was like, wait a second, Charlie Kirk is being held up as a Christ figure. I'm sorry, this guy was a YouTuber who did Jubilee style videos, who's like, watch as I own these blue-haired SJWs.
$1 deal before the FCC. So again,
that guy
we have the
was
media
Martin Luther
executives
King
seeing
Jr.,
that the way to get
right
ahead in the Trump administration is appeal to Trump. We have the Trump administration abusing its power, really shaking down these companies, demanding loyalty, demanding they erase and eliminate their diversity and equity programs.
Do you think Warner's would still distribute movies like One Battle After Another, Sinners, if this deal goes through? I certainly don't think that people like Ryan Coogler, who fought very hard to get that deal that he had with Sinners, I don't think that that's going to be a possibility for other people like Ryan Coogler. I think it definitely is going to affect creative freedom. So I can't tell you exactly, a comparison of movies that have been released in the last year. I don't know for sure the answer to that, but I absolutely know that it will hinder creative freedom, that the progress that has been made in diversifying storytelling, who gets to tell stories, who gets to be behind the camera and in front of the camera. I know that progress has already been regressing, and certainly more so will more so happen under Ellison control. I mean, a crackdown on creative freedom. Yes. A crackdown on press freedom, on creative freedom.
And demanding that in some cases they pay off the administration through specious lawsuits, or maybe it's they offer big movie contracts to the president's wife or do favors for his son-in-law's equity firm. This is the way the Trump administration has been working. This is what they're pursuing to try to do a takeover of the media and make sure the mainstream dominant media is really only there to serve Trump. And you can see that in all of these deals. Over the weekend, Trump expressed skepticism of Netflix, but then when 60 Minutes interviewed Marjorie Taylor Greene, well, maybe he doesn't like CBS and Paramount so much anymore. This is the game they're playing. It's all about control and dominance and one narrative. And unfortunately, media executives in broadcast, in cable, in Hollywood, instead of fighting back against this infringement on free speech and freedom, have simply capitulated, hoping it will get their deals done.
Craig Aaron, I want to thank you for being with us, co-CEO of Free Press and Free Press Action. We'll link to your new report titled Chokehold, Donald Trump's War on Free Speech and the Need for Systemic Resistance.
All right, last video. Let's watch this, and then let's talk about all the Scream 7 shit. They are treading on us and our rights. Yeah, where's the don't tread on me crowd? Because you're very much so being tread on. I love
Hello, everybody.
Dan Merrill,
I'm
too.
Dan Merrill here
He's
with
great.
some major news on the what was formerly Netflix Warner Brothers deal and is now the Paramount Skydance deal. Let me tell you how quickly news has been moving today. Just before I started recording this video, I had just finished recording an update of the news that we got earlier today. It was expected that we would need to wait a few days to hear what Netflix's reaction to the news earlier today was, but it turns out that what looked like it might be a multi-day process is now over. Long story short, earlier today, Warner Brothers Discovery announced that the revised offer they received from Paramount, which we'll look at in just a few minutes, was what they call a company superior offer, meaning that they believe that it offered better value to their shareholders than the deal that was on the table from Netflix. Now, the deal that they had in place with Netflix...
It genuinely sucks that the people in charge, you know, the billionaires and the CEOs, billionaire CEOs are inherently anti-art. Like the money people, the business execs, they are anti-art. And they only prove how anti-art they are every time they do one of these mergers. You have overwatched the news. Okay.
Allowed Netflix 4 days to counter Paramount Skydance's offer, to basically say, okay, we can top that, and to try to keep the deal going. But just minutes ago, Netflix announced that they will not be revising their offer, which basically means that they are walking away from the table, and it's over. Paramount Skydance will now acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. Netflix will not acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. Very briefly, let's look at the revised offer from Paramount Skydance that seemed to persuade the shareholders at Warner Brothers Discovery that it now had the superior offer. They increased their all-cash offer for 100% of the company from $30 a share to $31 a share, which was actually the minimum increase that WB said it was expecting in renewed negotiations. They also moved up the date of its ticking fee. The ticking fee is money payable to Warner Brothers Discovery if the deal has not been closed yet. It originally kicked in on the last negotiation in the first quarter of 2027. It now kicks in at the start of the fourth quarter of 2026, so that would be at the beginning of September. That fee reportedly could be worth $650 million per quarter. Paramount Skydance also agreed to a $7 billion fee payable to Warner Brothers.
Yeah, and just remember, this is illegal. This is an illegal merger. This should not, under any circumstances, be allowed to go through.
If the deal is canceled due to regulatory reasons, that was higher than the $5.8 billion that Netflix reportedly had on the table.
Like when the back and forth was between, what's worse, Netflix or Warner or Paramount acquiring Warner Brothers Discovery? It's like, no, neither. Neither. This is an illegal deal.
And of course, and this is now critical, Paramount Skydance agreed to pay the $2.8 billion that is now owed to Netflix because Warner Brothers opted to go with a different deal that was put into the Netflix deal from the very beginning. There were also additional assurances of liquidity to confirm that Paramount Skydance would be able to secure financing for the deal. This was a key concern for Warner Brothers shareholders in previous negotiations. This is an incredibly dramatic turn in a deal that at one time looked like it was going to Netflix. But what we have seen over the last week or so, and I've actually been preparing a much more heavily researched video that you'll probably see next week once a bit more of this dust has settled, is that there have been a lot of forces moving against Netflix, both inside the entertainment industry as well as on the government regulation side, that I think probably helped to persuade Warner Brothers shareholders that the regulatory process would be much easier with Paramount Skydance. I could go in depth on it, but like I said, I think that requires its own video. Very briefly, there is one process in particular called the HSR process that any major acquisition has to go through. Usually it takes companies months to go through this process. For Fox and Disney, it took about 6 months to go through this process. Well, because of the nature of their offer, Paramount Skydance was able to start this process in December, and they actually cleared it in 2.5 months, which is insanely fast for any sort of merger of this size, much quicker than we've seen even when two studios were merging. Netflix was still going through the process, and it allowed Warner Brothers Discovery to probably look at the two studios and say, well, actually, you know what? There probably is something to David Ellison saying that he can get regulation done quicker. We also know that Ted Sarandos was in Washington today, meeting with officials in the Trump administration, potentially even the president himself. There was speculation saying that depending on the result of that meeting, the outcomes of those meetings, what he was told
Why is it illegal?
as far as the regulatory
Antitrust
picture
laws.
for Netflix, he may decide that it's not worth pursuing. And that's ultimately what Netflix did decide today. Let's get to the statement that Netflix put out. And again, as I'm reading this, this is hot off the presses. The transaction we negotiated would have created shareholder value with a clear path to regulatory approval. However, we've always been disciplined, and at the price required to match Paramount Skydance's latest offer, the deal is no longer financially attractive, so we are declining to match the Paramount Skydance bid.
This explains why Netflix backed off. Netflix only wanted to own Smiling Friends, which is sadly ending at season 3, though. Or at least that's what I read. Yeah, that's the sole reason Netflix backed off, is because they were like, not worth it.
We believe that we would have been
Smiling
strong
Friends.
stewards of Warner Brothers' iconic brands, and
Don't you
that our
put that
deal
out
would
there?
have
No, I
strengthened the
think
entertainment.
it's true. I swear to God, I read Smiling Friends ending season 3. Yeah. Smiling Friends ending after season 3 because the creators are burnt out. If you haven't watched Smiling Friends, you should watch Smiling Friends. The show is incredible. It had previously been picked up for seasons 4 and 5 and will air 2 final episodes this spring because the creators are just too burnt. To be perfectly honest, after we finished season 3, Zach and I both had the same feeling where we felt pretty burnt out after putting years and years into this, but also pretty accomplished. We came to this feeling where we're like, I think that could be it after season 3. We both felt like it was right. Yeah, so the announcement came out and then Netflix was like, yeah, you know what? We can back off. You just fell to your knees in a Walmart. I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you that Smiling Friends will not have seasons 4 and 5. My favorite discourse around this show right now is that there are hordes of people who think the show is right-wing, and they're positing that the creators saw the fan base was woke and gay and wanted to end it. People really just be saying anything.
Industry and preserved and created more production jobs in the U.S., but this transaction was always a nice to have at the right price, not a must have at any price. We will continue to do what we've done for more than 20 years as a public company, delight our members, profitably grow our business, and drive long-term shareholder value. Now, as I said, this is
also what you guys should be doing right now is stockpiling as much physical media as you can. Get DVDs. Hold on to this stuff, because what happens is, well, what's been happening is that these companies erase media. We've seen it happen all over the place. So it's not just the, it's not just the whole kind of dead internet theory thing. But when something like a merger happens, they will get rid of properties that they own. They will no longer host it on their platforms. It's not just when mergers happen, but this is a big thing that happened after Warner Brothers and Discovery merged. And it's why people have been saying, make sure you get physical copies, because you might be one of the few to be in possession of a show or a film that you cannot get anywhere else.
breaking news. I'm sure there will be further.
I just donated a ton of DVDs and Blu-ray. That's fine. I mean, as long as it exists, as long as it's like there.
Comments from David Ellison, who I'm sure is very happy today because he finally got what he wanted. I'm sure that we will hear from David Zaslav. We will probably hear more from Ted Sarandos. And there's always insider reporting regarding probably what happened on Capitol Hill today, what the regulatory picture for Netflix actually looked like. And like I said, I have another video that I'm working on looking at how the regulation has worked so far for both Netflix and for Paramount Skydance. Long story short, from what I've seen, it seems very obvious to me that the government had a favorite between these two companies. That favorite was Paramount Skydance. And it's very possible that this whole regulatory process had the deck stacked from the very beginning. There's a lot to get into. We may learn a lot more in the next several days, but I wanted to get this breaking news update out right now because
also learn about DVD player repair and
right
maintenance because they're
the battle for
phasing
Warner
disc
Brothers
drives out.
Discovery is over. Netflix has walked away. Paramount Skydance has won. And now the question is, what will the antitrust concerns look like from the government with a combined Paramount Warner Brothers deal? You are still combining two major studios. Will it draw major regulatory concerns? This is massive news, obviously, in the entertainment industry with the combination of these two studios. It was always thought that the Paramount Warner Brothers potential acquisition would result in more job losses within the entertainment industry because you're combining two studios. And keep in mind, Paramount is a company losing money that bought another company in Warner Brothers Discovery that is losing money, and Paramount is borrowing an immense amount of money. This deal is worth about $110 billion if you include the debt that Warner Brothers Discovery currently has on its books. So Paramount Skydance is going to be heavily leveraged in this.
Also, they always pay more than the actual company is worth because obviously, why would the company sell then? But this is part of the problem with these massive mergers is that they are these astronomical deals that overinflate the actual value of the companies that are being acquired.
Deal. They're going to be looking for cost savings wherever they can get it. Cost savings are usually referred to as synergies, and that usually means jobs lost. In addition to concerns that many have with CNN now falling under the Paramount Skydance
shelving projects in order to get tax breaks.
Umbrella, people concerned with what they have already done with CBS News. There is so much more to get into, and it will be interesting to see how deeply the government decides to get into it now that this deal has completely turned 180 degrees. This is seismic here. I'm actually shocked that Netflix declined to raise their offer. It does seem like Ted Sarandos and the others at Netflix were being honest when they said that they are not desperate to buy Warner Brothers. They just saw an opportunity. The price was too high for them, or perhaps they got a reality check today that said this will never pass regulation. So a lot more to report on, but I just wanted to get the headline out there. Of course, stay tuned right here. I'm already working on one deep dive video looking at this whole process. And if there are other major developments, although I don't really know how many more major developments there can be in this story, I will bring them to you. A seismic shift in Hollywood today. Stay tuned right here for more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.
Can the courts eventually overturn this? They could. I mean, yeah, you can block or overturn a merger. There is precedent. So I just got a statement from California. Yeah, we already went over this. This is always the case with these M&As. It's just a matter of if the regulatory bodies like the DOJ and the FTC act to block the merger. And in this case, it doesn't look good because those two federal bodies are obviously completely under Trump's control.